Dmase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Willy Donick will join us momentarily. He's being a baseball dad this weekend. His son, Mahoney, playing for the Denison Big Red. I believe it's conference tournament time.
Yes, it is.
And as far as we know, Denison won today.
I think, yes, they won.
I think it was a late comeback win for the Big Red.
13-11. They were down 9-7 in the sixth inning. And they made a rally, and they came back, and they won 13-11. So
Willy's off celebrating. Yes. He'll take time out of his celebration to join the show in just a little bit. But, Derek, we are a show for the people. We do the show for ourselves, too, because we enjoy doing the show. We like having smart discussions. We love having great guests. By the way, Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports will join us at 4. Elliotte Friedman of SportsNet will join us at 5. But as I said, we are a show for the people. So we know what the people want to hear about. And as I was planning the show today, I came up with a lot of great topics. I saw some interesting projections for the Titans players this coming season, specifically Cam Ward. Interesting stuff. And we may get to that at some point. But we know what y'all want to talk about.
Yes.
Y'all want to talk about the latest in the Mike Vrabel, Diana Russini saga. We're going to have a big picture conversation about this, but let's start the show by recapping the latest developments. So yesterday, when we were on the air, TMZ Sports reported that Vrabel and Russini spent the day on the water, just the two of them, on a boat in Putnam County, Tennessee. And earlier today, there was an update to that story. Video of the pair together on the dock at the private rental company back in June 2021. Diana Russini, by the way, very clearly pregnant. That was reported in the initial story, that Russini was very much pregnant when this boat day happened back in the summer of 2021 in Putnam County, Tennessee. Am I pronouncing it incorrectly?
No, I'm just saying Putnam.
I'm always careful because I'll say Cookeville, but people say it's Cookeville. I'm like
Cookeville.
Cookeville, Tennessee.
It doesn't sound right coming out of my mouth. I'll go with Cookeville. And for those of you who live in Cookeville, who spend time in Cookeville, and if I'm mispronouncing it, I'm very, very, very sorry. Just like what?
Shelbyville,
Nashville,
Maryville, Shelbyville.
Yes, a Vol.
Yes, not Ville.
It's not Ville. It's Vol.
Sounds like you have a mouthful of molasses over there.
That's how we Tennesseans say it.
There you go. Ain't nothing wrong with it.
Anyway, so there's that. And then on top of that, there's another rumor that's going around on the internet that Diana Russini named her son Michael after Mike Vrabel. But TMZ decided to put the kibosh on that today by reporting, quote, the internet is running wild with Mike Vrabel and Diana Russini theories, but one can be put to rest. The NFL reporter did not name her first son after the coach. TMZ Sports has learned. Cyber sleuths have been looking into both Vrabel and Russini ever since their cozy resort pics dropped last month. And it didn't take long for them to highlight the fact that Russini's son and Vrabel share the same moniker. According to TMZ, Russini's son, Michael, was named in honor of her older brother, Michael Russini. The kid's middle name also pays tribute to another family member. So who knows if anybody actually believes that.
Oh, my
okay?
goodness.
So here's the thing that I am legitimately starting to wonder about Derek Mason. I have to wonder if there is any chance Mike Vrabel is not coaching the New England Patriots this season. As we've noticed, since this story broke, I believe a month ago today, around a month ago, with the pictures in the New York Post, of them at the resort in Arizona around the NFL owners meetings. So it's been about a month. And there's been this steady drip, drip, drip of stories. And you know as well as I do that these stories are going to continue to drip, drip, drip. And the NFL has said, Roger Goodell said on night one of the draft, this is a personal issue, not an NFL issue. So it doesn't sound like the NFL, at least Roger Goodell, at least what he said on night one of the draft, it doesn't sound like the NFL is going to intervene. But I do wonder, Derek, at some point, this is the biggest story in football for the past month.
Yes.
It completely overshadowed the NFL draft.
Yes.
This is what everybody wants to talk about. And I know there are some of you out there who want us to dive into the Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward and Carnell Tate, and we will do that today.
Let's believe.
We will do that. But it's also early May, and this is the story that has captivated the sports world. So I'm just wondering if at some point, either the NFL or the New England Patriots, who are no stranger to scandal, if one of those entities decides to say, hey, Mike, we can't do this, man. Like, if this sidebar, I'm really concerned what the grand finale of the story is going to be, because there is going to be a grand finale. I'm sure many of you can guess what I think that grand finale is. You can text us 615-737-1025. I think there's going to be a grand finale at some point. And this story on its own, Mike Vrabel on a boat with Diana Rossini when she was pregnant in Putnam County, Tennessee, 5 years ago. Like, this story itself isn't going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. No. But if you're the NFL, if you're the New England Patriots, you've got to be like, clearly there's more coming.
Well, there's only, I think, judging by what the NFL has done, in prior situations that were not directly related to football, whether it be, Vrabel now or Robert Kraft years ago. The NFL finds a way to insulate itself from everything that's going on outside. And they managed to just keep pushing on. They are a big entity. And it's hard to, stories like this to, do anything but, bounce off of the shield. And frankly, it's been proven. But I think in this situation, if that grand finale is what we all are thinking, then I think that's the Ray Rice video. That's what that is. That would be the Ray Rice video. We got to regroup here. Something has to happen. We got to move away, because now he becomes a pariah. He does. And it's going to take a lot for that stench to come. Even getting to the Super Bowl, I don't think would be able to save him from what we all are thinking.
And to be clear, let me phrase this as delicately as I can. I don't think the grand finale is some sort of tape, wink, wink. But let's just say I think the grand finale could be something that Maury Povich used to do a lot on his program. So, a certain type of test, perhaps. That's what I think the grand finale could be.
Yes.
And look, when a coach is successful, when a player is successful, you overlook a lot of stuff. Mike Vrabel, reigning NFL Coach of the Year, took over the New England Patriots, turned that team around, brought them to the Super Bowl. If Mike Vrabel were a 2-15 coach, I think the Patriots would have a lot less sympathy, perhaps. They would have less of a runway dealing with this stuff, I guess you could say. But I do want to say this. At a certain point, personal scandal can actually dictate what happens professionally, even if you're good. And as I said, the New England Patriots have dealt with a lot of scandals in their history. Deflategate, Spygate, the stuff with Robert Kraft. The Patriots are no stranger to scandal. But I'm having a hard time imagining Mike Vrabel being able to give his all to his team, knowing that there's so much more that's probably going to come out. Trevor on our text line says, I just think it's interesting that none of these photos or videos came out over the last 5 years. Well, imagine you're one of the people who works at this private rental company in Putnam County, Tennessee. Cookeville. There I go. I said it. Imagine you're a person who worked there 5 years ago. The story said that Vrabel agreed to take a picture, but did not want the picture posted on social media. So I think we've all done it. You're out in public, you see a celebrity, you pop out your phone, you zoom in, you take a video, you send it to your friends. Oh my God, I saw Timothy Chalamet outside of Madison Square Garden before the Knicks game, because you know he loves his Knicks. Like, people do that. So I can imagine someone, because remember, Vrabel was coach of the Titans at this time. I can imagine someone working at this boat company saying, oh my God, that's Mike Vrabel, taking a video of it, sending it to their buddies, and forgetting about it. And then the story pops up, and that person goes, oh my God, I have a video of Vrabel and Rossini at the boat rental facility from 5 years ago. I should cash in on TMZ, because I imagine TMZ paid for it. So I understand that technically Mike Vrabel hasn't broken any rules with the NFL. Again, Roger Goodell said this is a team matter. This is a personal matter. So it doesn't seem like the NFL is going to punish him with their personal conduct policy. Who knows what the Patriots do? But we know how image conscious the NFL is. You know this.
Oh, absolutely.
And I have to imagine at some point, someone in the NFL says to someone at the Patriots, we can't do this anymore. This, like, imagine if more stuff comes out, especially as training camp approaches. That's when people really start focusing back in on the NFL, and all anybody wants to talk about is Mike Vrabel and Dianna Russini. I have to imagine that at some point, someone in the NFL says to someone at the Patriots, you got to do something. That we make him step away, suspend him. I don't know, but he can't be coaching this team week one.
And look, people are probably saying, because listen to some of the text, well, where were these videos at years ago? And I understand that part, but I think Adam explained it, eloquently, how things like that can happen, and then it jars somebody's memory because they go back to a video and they're like, oh, they were, and they didn't know what his wife looked like, but now they do, and they go back and like, that doesn't look like his wife, and they put it out. But either way, why should that really matter? But in the NFL, listen, I know what people are saying. Well, there are other scandals out there. Guys may cheat on their girlfriends or wives, and that stuff and it never does anything to the organization, or the NFL doesn't come down on that individual. And you're absolutely right. And nor should they. They shouldn't, because like that is a personal matter. But a player's conduct like that never affects the team. What affects the team is the guy that is leading us. Now he engages in those acts, a guy that we hold to a higher standard. When you take that job, you are held to a very high standard. I'm sure there are rules in there that are not in players' rule book that the head coach must abide by. So when the head coach goes out and does something like this, listen, I don't know what his relationship was like, and I'm not here to, litigate that. But when you are a person, you are in a position of power, there are things that you know that if you do, and if you get caught, there will be repercussions. And it may not necessarily cost you your job, but it's going to cost the people around you to think about you different. That's what it costs. But not only that, say this thing continues, more and more stories continue to come out, which they may not. It seemed like they're trickling out. We're into the season, and this stuff continues to come up. If you don't think, I'm going to tell you, if you don't think that doesn't affect a team or a person, you are being completely naive. You are walking around with your hands over your ears and your hands and one hand's over your ears or earmuffs on and things over your eyes. You're not hearing nor seeing, because things like that does affect what goes on in the business. I was in the league for 15 years, and it's hard, as much as coaches try to do it, it's hard to tell a player, hey, listen, when you walk through those doors, that baggage you got, you have to set it aside. Because once you walk through those doors, we are all about winning. And anything that take focus off of that, it hurts us. And many players have tried it, myself have tried it, but it's hard to do. It's hard to check that stuff at the door when you're in the locker room and it's bothering you. And then you go out on the field and you're really not there because those things are bothering you. If you don't think that doesn't affect you and the players, you are naive, completely naive. And the more and more this stuff starts to come out, or if I hope this is the end, I really do. I hope this video of them, that's it. Because more and more stuff comes out. Damn Vrabel and Rossini, it's those individuals that will be affected by it. Their kids, their spouses. That's what I'm talking about. So if you don't think that it's going to affect that team, if things continue to come out, then you are completely wrong. Completely wrong.
615-737-1025. I do want to continue that aspect of the conversation because I do want Derek's player perspective on what the New England Patriots players could be thinking through all of this. 615-737-1025. A reminder that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at 1025 The Game for live shows and exclusive content, such as this one. You might be watching us on that YouTube channel right now. If you are, hello. I'm waving into the stream. But if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, you should at 1025 The Game, again, for live shows and exclusive content. Also, the Nashville Sounds have a doubleheader today against Louisville. First pitch is coming up at 3:35 p.m. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Family Leisure and Social Cantina.
Not trying to bring. Not trying to bring up the biggest story in the world, that is the Mike Vrabel situation. But I'm curious, if this continues to get worse, is there any chance that Mike Vrabel takes a year off from being the head coach of the New England Patriots? And if that does indeed happen, does that change the wishes of A.J. Brown?
I would say that right now there are zero plans for Mike Vrabel has zero plans to step down. Patriots don't have any plans for him to step down today. As we've seen in this particular situation, it continues to take twists and turns where you think the story may be subsiding and it's not. Mm-hmm. And I would say that as long as there are no other flare-ups or revelations or videos or pictures or whatever it may be, as long as there's nothing else, I would fully expect Mike Vrabel to coach next year.
That was Adam Schefter. That was Adam Schefter on 97.5 The Fanatic in Philadelphia. Derek, let me ask you a question. When do you think Adam Schefter said that?
Oh, man. It sounds like he said it today or yesterday.
That was yesterday morning, before the new TMZ story came out. So who knows if that counts as a flare up or whatever the word Adam Schefter used. But we're talking about Mike Vrabel. A lot of you have weighed in. A couple of you have said the same thing. Jeremy in Clarksville, for example, says, it doesn't help Vrabel that he's acted like a holier-than-thou D-bag for the last few years. Another texter, like right after Jeremy, says, I don't think I would care at all if it weren't for him always doing the holier-than-thou leader of men, don't do dumb bleep to hurt the team crap, and the whole time doing dumb crap. I mean, that is part of it.
Yeah, and that's why I said that when it comes to a player and a coach, they are on two different tiers when you're talking about accountability. Should they all be accountable for what they do? Absolutely. We all should be. But when you sit at the seat that only 31 other people sit at, you have an obligation. It's not a no, you are obligated to do what is right. And listen, it's hard. I get it. It's hard to be right all the time. I understand that. But things like that, those are choices that you control. And again, I'm not sitting here as if I'm perfect, because I'm damn sure not. I'm divorced. So I'm not sitting here acting as if I'm holier than thou. But when you sit at that seat, there is a level of accountability that nobody else, not even other coaches, nobody else has that deals with that team than the head coach. Nobody else.
This is the first story in this saga that has made me feel really gross. The photos in Arizona, weird. The photos in New York of them getting cozy at the bar, weirder. The idea of Mike Vrabel going on a boat with a woman, very clearly pregnant, hopefully with her husband's child, made me like, ugh. Like, this is the first time I saw a story in this scandal and went, that's disgusting. I do want to get your perspective on one thing.
Okay.
But before we do, let's go to Scott on our phone line. Scott, thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. Yeah, I'm listening to the conversation. I feel like you guys have brought up two different points, one which I agree with, one which I don't. The first one was around public perception forcing the NFL to potentially come down on Mike Vrabel in a certain way and maybe suspend him or otherwise for the season. And I just don't see that as likely in any respect whatsoever. Like, at the end of the day, there's a moral or ethical failing here, but if numbers or anything, this happens all over the place. Like in there's plenty of scenarios just like this that have happened across the NFL and likely do on an ongoing basis. Derek's point around the impact it has on the locker room, I think, is a pertinent point. And if he loses the team as a result of this, I think 100%. Then it's incumbent upon the Patriots to make a decision around, is the Mike Vrabel we hired no longer this Mike Vrabel, because he doesn't have the same grasp of the team because of the character aspect and who he is as a leader, which makes him such a powerful leader. And I really think that's going to come down to how he communicates and handles this amongst the team. Because it can go both ways. The team could easily rally around him in a way where they say, he's come clean and he, recognizes his failing, and this is what I'm going to do about it. And in a certain way, you can see people rallying around. Also, the more the outside world chimes in, that's another binder for a team at times as well. But I'll listen to you guys from there. Just want to share my point.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. That Scott's call leads me into what I wanted to talk to you
Let
about.
me answer the first part.
Yeah.
Because I knew what you wanted to ask, but I'm going to leave that for you to ask. But the first part, you mentioned about, the organization and I don't think we said the league should do anything. The league has already said that is up to the New England Patriots.
My point was, I do wonder,
is it going to come to a point where
is it going to come to a point, because we can only assume that more stories are going to continue to leak out. I mean, we've seen pictures of them in Arizona. We've seen pictures of them in New York City. We've seen pictures of them at the casino, I believe, in Biloxi, Mississippi, after he got fired by the Titans. We've seen pictures of him and now video of him and Diana Rossini in Putnam County. Clearly, there are people everywhere who are looking into this. So you would be naive to believe that there aren't going to be more stories. My point was, and I appreciate the call, Scott. My point was, I do wonder if at some point the NFL has to intervene and suggest to the Patriots, I'm not sure what you're planning on doing here, but let me give you our advice, which is
you may have to distance yourself.
You may have to distance yourself. But to Scott's second point on the players, I saw this story yesterday via the Associated Press. Drake May, of course, New England Patriots starting quarterback, was at the Truist Championship Pro-Am in Charlotte. And the reporter asked May about Mike Vrabel. I'm going to read the first two graphs of the story. Quote, New England Patriots quarterback Drake May called Mike Vrabel, quote unquote, a great human being, and said he doesn't believe the coach's off-field issues will be a distraction for the defending AFC champions this upcoming season. No, I don't, May said. I mean, he's our head coach. I think he's done a great job of talking to us and talking us through it. I'm just looking forward to getting back to work and getting ready. Now, that is the political answer. That is the answer that the starting quarterback should say about the coach in this situation. But Derek, I want to know what you think the New England Patriots players are saying behind closed doors. I want you to put yourself in their position. Every time a new story comes out, what are you all talking about? Does it come to a point where when Vrabel says something to you, it's in one ear and out the other? How can he possibly preach about accountability and being family when he's allegedly stepping out on his wife? I want to
dumb that hurt the team.
And that. I want to know the player perspective. How do you think the Patriots players are really thinking about this?
I mean, I'm sure they're talking about it or have talked about it. As more stories continue to come out, they will continue to talk about it. I'm sure everybody in our locker room has seen that video now. And that is probably to them the part where they said, come on now, man. Again, like it's the video. You see it. It's like, come on, like seriously. But here's sort of the dilemma that you get into. Again, I've always said that players' accountability is different from coaches' accountability or head coach accountability. Listen, we all need to be held accountable for the things that we do or say. We all need to be held accountable. But it's different as you start to step up the ladder. And when you are the head coach, then it ranges different on when you're talking about your team. But if you have a locker room full of young guys, which I think New England does, I think those young guys are, one, they are hesitant to say anything. Why? Because to them, their future is being held in their hands. So how much is a first, second, or third year guy going to say outside of the quarterback? Probably nothing. They may whisper to themselves or in the locker room, not to themselves, but to other players in the locker room or on the bus or when they're out, amongst themselves, they may whisper, but they're not going to say anything that they deem is going to jeopardize their standing with the team. So reporter after reporter, if you're going to ask them something on the record and you're talking about printing their name, they're not going to say anything.
You're going to get the answer
Exactly.
Drake
You're
May
going to
gave
get the
the reporter
answer
in Charlotte.
that Drake May gave, and rightfully so. Because if he says anything contrary to that, which he may believe what Vrabel do was completely wrong, but he feel being a young guy, if he says something like that, now the story becomes about Drake May, the leader, and how he has, came at the head coach who is perceived the biggest leader. So now there seems to be a conflict with those two. And New England does not want that. Drake May does not want that. Now, I don't know what they've said to each other behind closed doors. That's for them to know, and for him to say. But when it comes to older guys that have been in the league a while, guys that have family, I think they look at it a different way. I think they look at it from the standpoint of, man, like, you can't do this because now all these younger guys are looking at you. Now we got to explain to the younger guys. Yeah, you explain to them, but we as veterans now we have to make sure that everything stays, on board. And I'm talking about the veteran guys, the leadership council, because they gotta, whatever Vrabel says, he says this to the leadership council. And the only way that team all falls in line is if those leaders show that, hey, listen, this is how things are going to be ran. And no more, no less. The head coach can yell and scream all he wants to. But if those leaders, those veterans are not doing what the head coach is asking them to do, then what do you think the younger players are going to do? So it's the older players that I think that will set the tone here. And a lot of older players are probably like, man, you can't do this. Like, you always tell us not to do dumb stuff that hurts the team. And you have done something that not only hurt the team, but it hurt your family. And that's what you preach to us. And we love you for it. And you're not perfect. He's a flawed individual, just like we all are. But again, I'll always say, when you sit in that seat, it's about what you're doing and how you're leading. And if anything affects how you're leading, then we got to look at you from a different standpoint. Not to say I hate you or anything else, but it's like, man, come on now. And if he has to step away, good for his family. That's what I say. Good for his family, because he cannot, and I repeat, you cannot coach a football team and try to fix something that has been going on for apparently a long time and try to fix that all together. You can't do it. It's physically and mentally impossible.
One texter says, hate to contradict Drake May, but great human beings don't have multi-year affairs with married women. I mean,
I just say he's flawed. The great and all that other stuff. He may be wonderful in every other area aspect. He's done a wonderful job at leading men. I get it. But he's a flawed human being. That's just what he is. I'm not going to say he's awful. I'm not going to say any of that. He's just a flawed human being. And when you are on that seat, your flaws better be minimum. And if they are flaws, there better be something that is not going to affect anything.
615-737-1025. We will talk about actual football coming up next. Which Titans veterans are on the hot seat after the NFL draft? We'll discuss that. Willy Donick will also join the program coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Dmase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Willy Donick, live from an undisclosed location. It's not really undisclosed. He'll tell you where he is. Fresh off of a Denison Big Red baseball win. Willy, how are you?
I am relieved. People.
Give us the recap. Give us the rundown.
Were you nervous, Willie?
I was a little nervous. It's not do or die time. This is the conference tournament. Denison is going to be in the NCAA tournament in Division III next week, regardless of how they do in this conference tournament. The NCAC, the North Coast Athletic Conference. Now, I think we joked about this last year. I'm not sure what coast any of the schools are on. The coast of a lake, maybe somewhere, but all the schools except for two are in Ohio. The other two are Indiana. That's not near any of the oceans, but either way, that's the name of the conference. But Denison is ranked number 1 in the NCAAs in Division III. They did win today. Their 37th straight win. They were 1-1. They've won 37 in a row since then. They got down 9-6. They gave up 8 runs in the 5th inning today, leading 6-1, and then all of a sudden found themselves down by 3. But they were able to pull it out, and they're staying in the winner's bracket. So they will play tomorrow morning.
Congratulations
job,
to
Big
Mahoney
Red.
Donick and the rest of the Denison
Donick.
Big Red.
He did not appear today, but he is after that game. They used a lot of pitchers, so he is likely to be in the plan for tomorrow or Saturday. We'll
That's
see.
what I was going to ask you. How many pitchers did they use today?
They used 4
Ooh.
today. 4 of their main guys too. So it was not. They had to use some ammo to get through that game.
I'm sure they did.
Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports will join us at the top of the hour. Before we get to Easton, I want to discuss an interesting story I saw on ESPN.com written by Ben Solak. He highlighted 14 veteran NFL players who might be in jeopardy of a major role reduction, if not a loss of starting snaps outright in 2026 following the NFL draft. And of those 14 players, one of them was or is a member of the Tennessee Titans, and that's Cody Barton. Ben Solak writes, quote, Barton played 1,061 snaps last season for the Titans, every single possible snap available to him, and now he might be out of a job. Solak mentions Anthony Hill Jr., the second-round linebacker, has the sort of speed that Barton doesn't. But critically, Solak writes, Hill was a multi-year signal caller at the heart of the Texas defense. He seems better suited to slide into Barton's shoes at middle linebacker than Cedric Gray's spot at weak side linebacker. But I would wager both jobs are up for grabs in different combinations as Saleh explores the best version of his roster in 2026. If Barton is indeed shelved for Hill, expect trade calls. So, Derek, even if I hadn't brought to you this list, and I asked you that question, which Titans veteran is most on the hot seat after the NFL draft? Would you have said Cody Barton too?
Yeah, looking at their roster, and trying to figure out what other battles would there be with an incumbent. And outside of, we thought about Calvin Ridley, but that's really, it's supplanting him from the number 1. And then they reworked the contract. So it's like, he's not really in jeopardy of losing his spot because the guys behind him are still young. They're still developing. They didn't bring in someone to put a veteran to put behind Calvin Ridley. He's going to be, preceded by a younger guy. Elliotte, I think Elliotte is on his side. So I thought about him, but then at the tight ends, they didn't really go get a tight end that has done much in the passing game. So Gunnar Helm is not
Daniel Bellinger.
Yeah, Gunnar Helm is not in jeopardy necessarily of losing his job. So you sort of look through the offense, nobody, because they hadn't solidified a right guard yet. The center position is going to be a battle, but that's not a veteran guy or a guy that was his last year battling with someone. And the only spot on this team is the 2 linebacker positions, Cedric Gray and Cody Barton. Cedric Gray is a younger player, a guy that you drafted, a guy that is developing. And what has he talked about? Draft, develop, and retain. So he would fit in there. And unfortunately, because Barton was brought in, he would sort of be the odd man out if everything was equal. And I think at this point, I'm not sure if everything is equal. I think Gray just may be a little bit better right now than Barton, which is a good thing because he's a younger player. And now they draft a guy, and Trevor talked about this. Trevor Mattis talked about this when we had him on the other day about Hill being the green dot guy at Texas, amongst a lot of great athletes, a lot of really good athletes there, and guys that got drafted. So it would just be, it would be, if I'm thinking about it in that terms, it would make me think that, okay, if this guy Hill comes out and he balls and he starts to show that he's ready, Cody Barton may be the guy out, because with Cody Barton, you still have a good player that now you can leverage and get something for.
Cody Barton, according to Ben Solak of ESPN.com, had good coverage metrics last season, but, quote, Barton has always been more wily and assignment sound than he is athletically talented, and the lack of speed impacted his ability to beat blockers to the point of attack and get involved in plays at the sideline. For new coach Robert Saleh, who needs his linebackers to flow fast, Barton's current legs might be disqualifying.
Well, I would say it's good to have depth. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good problem to have. I guess I would ask, because he's got really good strengths, Cody Barton. He may not be the best match for the defense that Saleh wants to play, but either way, I like having him in the stable. He's a team guy. He hustles. He plays hard. He's got intangibles. I like him as a culture guy. So if you're looking to get something for him, I want something significant. I'm not just going to give him away for a pick. I want something good. Otherwise, I think he's better off being in the stable.
I think if you get a 4th-round pick for him, I think you have to, if indeed he is the guy, because again, like you said, Willie, things that he doesn't possess, he make up in other areas. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't be in the league right now as a starter. He's a good player. So when you have a good player versus a young player that you feel has all of the tangibles that you need and you can develop, then unfortunately, guys like Cody Barton, who are good players, it's easier for you to move them and get something for them rather than somebody that may not be as good as Cody Barton is.
Kevin, on
they played this game a couple years ago. It was at Ernest Jones that they traded for, and then they traded him away. And I don't think they came out ahead, really. And Ernest Jones is still a really good player in the league. It didn't work as well as I thought it might. So I do think you see this with linebackers who have maybe a slightly different skill set depending on the system they're being asked to play. But I do hope that if they're going to trade him, it's for something significant.
Kevin says, Borgonzi has proven he ain't going to just trade guys to trade guys. You never get rid of guys just to get rid of guys. You need depth. You need to develop guys, such as Will Levis, and then trade them. If we had kept Malik Willis another year, we would have gotten a 2 instead of a 7th. Bill Belichick made a living off developing guys, then moving them for capital. I wonder, though, I do wonder how much more development there is for Cody Barton. He's 29. He'll be 30 during the season. Like, how much more development is there for a nearly 30-year-old linebacker?
Well, I mean, as far as physically, I'm not sure how much faster he's going to get, if at all. I'm not sure how quick he's going to get. But from, like Willie talked, the instincts, the being able to read plays because you're studying the game the way you need to as a veteran. Those things he's always going to get better at, because the more film you watch, the more you break down these teams, the better you become at reading and reacting. And maybe that is the thing that helps him, is that because he can dissect it and see it quickly, he gets there. Well, he's going to have to start getting there a little bit faster, even knowing that, because he's going to have a rookie behind him that is going to push him. But I don't think there's much physical development, more development he can do at this point at the age of 30. I mean, I
also think it's a fair question to ask. Is Anthony Hill just going to absolutely be starting, ready to go on day one? I don't know. You'd love for that to happen. You hear a lot of good things about him, but that might be a little bit of a tall order.
Matthew on our text line says, unless you can get another Jermaine Johnson for Cody Barton, you have to hold on to him. And I understand Willy's point. You are under no obligation to trade Cody Barton if Anthony Hill takes his job. We know how rookies are. There are ups and downs in a rookie season. Anthony Hill may hit that proverbial wall at some point. And it's good to have a veteran in Cody Barton who can take over if Anthony Hill hits that proverbial wall. But I don't pretend to know what Cody Barton's trade value is. We can ask Easton Freeze about that in just a few minutes. But yeah, the only other player I could think of who would qualify would be Calvin Ridley, but that's sort of already happened because they drafted Carnell Tate, they signed Wan'Dale Robinson, they restructured Ridley's contract, so he basically took a pay cut, right? He's been functionally demoted. He's probably the number 2 receiver at the moment. I guess you could make an argument he's the number 3 receiver, depending on how the Titans feel about Wan'Dale Robinson at this moment. But it wouldn't shock me at some point if Ridley is effectively the number 3 receiver. But outside of Ridley, Derek, I can't think, as you laid out, I can't think of another veteran whose job is at stake because of a rookie the Titans just drafted.
Yeah, it's hard to look at this and say, well, which one of these guys outside of, Cody Barton do we believe has may end up losing their job? There's not many. I thought about Femi, but Femi's not going to take John Franklin Myers' job.
He's a second-year player.
And he's a second-year player, so he's not going to take John Franklin Myers' job. But that's really the only guy. There may be some guys in the secondary that it's going to be a battle, but veteran guys losing their position to a first-year guy or even a second-year guy, there's not many positions that I say that's going to happen outside of Cody Barton.
615-737-1025. Which Titans veteran is on the hot seat after the NFL draft? I think we can all agree that it's probably Cody Barton. I guess you can make a case for Calvin Ridley. 615-737-1025. We'll ask Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports this question and more about the Tennessee Titans coming up next. 615-737-1025. Boxing fans, 1025 The Game and Team Boxing League have your chance to win tickets to see Nashville Smash take on the Boston Butchers at Municipal Auditorium on Saturday, May 23rd. That's 2 weeks from Saturday. 16 rounds and 16 fighters each go at it for 1 round of nonstop action. Text the keyword FIGHT, FIGHT, to the game text line right now at 615-737-1025 to enter for your chance to win. Dmase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5. The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Continuing the Titans conversation, let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com and welcome in our friend Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports. Easton, been on any boats lately?
No, staying far away from any bodies of water.
Probably smart. So we were discussing, before you came on, we were discussing Ben Solak's recent story on ESPN.com about NFL veterans who are on the hot seat after the draft. And he mentioned Cody Barton because of Anthony Hill Jr. and how Hill might be a better fit in Robert Saleh's defense. Do you anticipate Hill taking Barton's job at some point during the season?
Yeah, absolutely. The question is, where is some point in the season? I think a lot of fans are going to talk themselves into him being a second-round pick, and so it's going to be week 1. And I'm not sure about that. I think Cody Barton's reputation has been tarnished beyond what's fair this offseason. Like, did he have a very good season? No. Did he fail to meet the expectations we had for him? I would say that's fair. Yeah, a fair characterization of his year. But that's a fair characterization for most everybody on the team last year, to be honest with you. I think that he is a useful player who's a really low-ceiling Mike linebacker for a team. And where he's most useful is, honestly, the communication element of being the quarterback of the defense and wearing the green dot. And he can do that really well. It's just a range physical limitation, being maybe a tick slow on certain things, and it's a game of inches back there. Anthony Hill doesn't have any of those issues. The question is, how quickly can he get up to speed in Saleh's defense, and how quickly can he become the guy that can wear the green dot and be a Mike linebacker for this team? Because I think that ultimately when he does come in, he's going to be that Mike to wear the dot and be the communicator. Something that the Titans tried last season before the season was messing around with Cedric Gray, playing some of that Mike, but just from a communication standpoint, he wasn't ready to do that yet. And that's not to say that he can never do it. Maybe he does eventually do it. But last season, it just didn't work out, and they wanted Barton handling that responsibility. I think that's how it's going to be going forward. And so, Anthony Hill, how quickly can you get up to speed and be the guy communicating?
Here's another one for you that Tommy suggested on our text line. Tony Pollard. Do you think Nick Singleton could challenge Pollard and Tajay Spears for meaningful reps at running back?
Pollard, no. Tajay, maybe. Singleton's role on this team this year, and all of this is TBD because he had the Jones fracture in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and so he's coming off of a foot surgery to his 5th metatarsal, which he got in early February, I believe. And so we know that he's like running around some right now, but not doing a whole lot of work yet. And I don't know whether he'll be 100% by the end of OTAs in June or whether that's going to be a training camp thing. So all of that's up in the air. But even if he was healthy today, as a late day 3, I forget where these guys went. Was he a 5th rounder, 6th rounder? It's all blurry in my head now. A late day 3 pick. He is somebody that I think is going to be a change of pace back his 1st and maybe 2nd year in the league if he pans out the way that the team hopes he does. That'll kind of be his archetype. And that's the Tajay Spears role. Now, Singleton's a better runner between the tackles, in my opinion, than Spears is. He just has, I don't know if he literally has more mass. I'd have to compare their weights. I don't think they're like that different in terms of size, but he plays like a guy that has more oomph to him when he's trying to fight for yards between the tackles. Now, Tajay Spears fights his butt off in there. I just don't think he has the weight behind his heels. Singleton's thing that he's going to have to work on is he was a big one read, one cut and go guy and really struggled to see things as a running back, which you can improve at the NFL level with the right development. But I'm not sure how quickly that will come along or if it will ever come along. And so if he's going to challenge somebody, I think it would be Spears this year. And even though Pollard's the older player, I mean, they're both on expiring contracts. And it's, I don't want to say likely, but extremely plausible, but that neither of them are back next season. And so Singleton is really fighting to be the guy that is given the unspoken mantle at the end of the season to like be the guy in 2027.
Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports is with us. Easton, I know you wrote a story on A2Zsports.com recently about the best NFL player comps for Carnell Tate from many different top draft evaluators. As you mentioned in the story, I know there are a lot of Titans fans out there that are concerned that Carnell Tate is going to be Corey Davis 2.0. So let me
Right.
let me ask you this, as someone who watches a lot of football, watched a lot of Carnell Tate. Who must Carnell Tate become, do you think, at receiver for Titans fans to feel he was the correct choice at number 4 overall?
Do I need to answer that with a player comp, or can I answer it how I want to answer it?
I was thinking player comp, but you can do both if you'd like.
Let
I'll
me
let
do
you
both
choose.
quickly. So my actual answer for what he has to be a success is, at the end of his rookie contract, the Titans need to offer him a top wide receiver contract in the league. Not that, you don't have to break the market and be the new highest paid guy in the league or anything, but like a wide receiver 1 contract. And we all go, yes, of course you offered Carnell Tate a wide receiver 1 contract. That makes sense. Like, that's the bar. If he earns that money at the end of his rookie contract, and if he helps Cam Ward become the franchise guy. If he does those things, no one's going to care exactly how many yards and touchdowns he had and exactly how he stacked up to the rest of the team while he was here. Like, do you become the guy that is that financially valuable to your team? Now, for player comps, it's interesting, and I recommend people go read this article because there's a lot of different places that you think it'd be a lot of the same player in this kind of aggregation of 7 or 8 different comparisons around the league. But there's some differing opinions. The most common one is T. Higgins, which is funny to me because if Corey Davis is on one hand and T. Higgins is on the other, like, Corey Davis is the guy that gives all Titans fans a bad taste in their mouth in terms of value and how it panned out. And then T. Higgins is the guy that we spent like 2 or 3 off seasons in a row with Titans fans panning for them to trade and sign T. Higgins to some massive contract. He can be our wide receiver 1, no doubt. We love that guy. So it's very hot and cold in that way in terms of how Titans fans react to those players. I think Higgins makes a lot of sense. Like, he was the first pick of the second round. So in terms of draft value, it's different. But he's a guy that is currently, the Bengals have done the franchise tag thing, and they pay him a pretty significant amount of money for another top receiver on your team because they know that half the teams in the league would love to bring him in to be their 1. And that's the kind of player that he is. If Carnell Tate becomes that guy, then I think that's going to be something nobody has any issue with. A couple of the other names that were brought up, a really popular one is his Ohio State fellow alumni, Chris Olave down in New Orleans, is somebody that was not the fastest, not the biggest, not the strongest player, like in terms of, not like a super gritty blocker or anything, but just a really well-rounded, all-around body type, all-around skill set, more effective as an actual wide receiver from a technician standpoint than he is from a pure raw athletic standpoint. And the reality of being a wide receiver 1 in the NFL is really funny. Like, if you go and take all of the top 32 receivers, all of the wide receiver 1s on every team, and average out their 40-yard dash time, for example, it's like in the mid 4.5s, just like Carnell Tate is. It's surprising how little the high-end athleticism means, at least right now in the league, to top-end wide receiver play. And if you talk to the defenders who have to cover these guys in the league right now, they'll tell you, man, like, being a talented receiver who runs their routes well is infinitely more important than being super fast. Hey, how sharp are you in your breaks? How good are your breaks when you need to slow down and cut a guy off? How well can you tempo your routes? Like, all of these things that go into the games of Devontae Adams, which is another popular comp for Carnell Tate in the article. I think the guys like DeAndre Hopkins, these guys, again, they just aren't the world's greatest athletes on paper, but they kill you every single week when they're in their prime because they're really good receivers.
We'll talk with Easton Freeze from A to Z Sports. It's weird that they compared them to Olave, because I'm sitting there watching both players. I'm like, he's 6'3", he's 6 foot. They had the same number in college. I get it, but they're two
It's not my
different.
favorite comp either.
Exactly.
But
I'm like, that's
Jeremiah
crazy.
and Lance Zierlein see him. So who am I to say that they're wrong, I guess?
Exactly. So, but speaking of, Carnell Tate, young players, not necessarily the comp, Easton. I've been thinking about this because Jeffrey Simmons turns 31 once they enter the new season. John Franklin Myers, he'll be 31, but he wasn't a draft pick. I'm looking at this team and I'm realistically thinking, like, over the next couple of years, but in particular these last couple of years, how many cornerstone guys do this team have currently, or guys that you believe can be cornerstones? I know next year's draft, they could draft some more guys. I get that. But how you're looking at this team now, the young guys that they've drafted, because again, Jeff is going to be gone soon. He's not going to spend many years in the new stadium. I hope he does, but, war of attrition. John Franklin Myers wasn't a draft pick. So how many of these guys on this team now that they've drafted can be cornerstone guys?
Man, that's a good question. I'm thinking here on the fly. I'll leave Jeff where he is because we agree he's obviously a cornerstone guy now. How many more years is that? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? He does not have. He's not have 10 plus years as a Titan from today potential. So who does have that? Obviously, Cam Ward does. He has to prove that this year. I'm not writing off either of the day 3 receivers from last year or the tight end for that matter. So between Iamaner, DK, and Helm, I could easily see one, if not 2 of those guys being multi-contract Titans. And if you maybe pick one, I might pick Helm, even though he had the least actual production on paper last year. I just think that he's that talented of a player and has a ton of potential. On the offensive line, Peter Skoronski is definitely that guy. J.C. Latham has the potential to be that guy, and everybody else is, hopeful at best. At running back, Nick Singleton's the one that has the best potential for that, but I'm certainly not expecting that from him. On the defensive side of the ball, both of the young, actually all 4 of the day 2 defenders from the past 2 years have that potential. So Femi Oladejo, Kevin Winston Jr., who I feel like we haven't talked a whole lot about. The whole safety position is kind of weird. Like they have 2 guys, and then I'm not sure what they're doing behind them, and they're going to have to add to that position. And then this year you've got Anthony Hill and Keldrick Falk. Like all 4 of those guys have that potential, but none of them have shown. 2 of them haven't played yet. None of them have shown me like, hey, this guy's definitely going to be a foundational piece. So if you come out of the next 2 to 3 years of evaluation feeling good about 2 of them being foundational pieces, I think you're really excited. I think any GM would sign up for a 50% hit rate in the draft. And then beyond that, man, it's like Amani Hooker's not going to be that guy long term for this team. Not at his age. At cornerback, Marcus Harris, I think you're being hopeful again. So what did I name? Like 4 or 5 guys there total? It's not a ton.
No, you're right about that. And hopefully, next year's draft can possibly produce more guys that you believe will be cornerstone guys, because that's what they're going to need. And Jeff is going to be wonderful. And as long as he plays, I think he's going to be at the top of his game or damn near close to it. But he eventually is going to have to phase out, and you're going to have that new core of individuals. Now, in regards to the coaching staff, listen, I know outside of like wins and losses, we need to see the wins. We need to see more wins than we have seen over the last 2 years. I get that. But what else is it that you need to see, or you feel the fan base needs to see from this coaching staff?
Man, that's a good question. Because, I'm somebody that is going to tell you how I feel. And honestly, the way that I observed the end of the Callahan run and then what happened with Mike McCoy down the second 2/3 of the season, at no point did it feel like the locker room was lost by those guys, that there was any kind of like immaturity issues or rebellion. I think Mike Borgonzi being at the top of all of this, holding it together, being the leader that a lot of these guys put their faith in. I mean, we go into the locker room on cleanout day last year, and a lot of them are unprompted bringing up like, we trust Mike Borgonzi is going to get this figured out. And so I think that's a big part of it, to be honest with you. But the last coaching staff, when we're comparing these new guys to those guys, it's not like, well, they've got to whip these guys into shape, and there's got to be discipline, and there's got to be this, and there's got to be that. It really does just come down to like, hey, this roster fell apart big time at the end of the Vrabel era and the John Robinson era. There have been a couple of free agency decisions that didn't break your way, and some questionable money management when it comes to veteran free agents. We've got to get these books cleared up, which I think that they have. And we've got to get some of these young guys playing meaningful roles. Like last year, I believe the Titans had the most rookie snaps out of any team, which is good for your future, but really, really bad for your present. It means you're a really crappy team now because nobody has that many inexperienced snaps and plays good football in the NFL. It's not how it works. So you need a lot of those inexperienced guys. You need to kind of become what the Packers became. It feels like every single year we talk about like, the Packers are still one of the youngest teams in the league. And they are. I believe they're the 5th youngest team in the league. But they've been one of the youngest teams in the league for 5 years now because their team, was 20 years old, all of them 5 years ago. And now they're all 25, which is still really young by NFL terms. The Titans need to become that if they're going to build not just quickly, but sustainably You've got a bunch of young players who we think can be contributors. We just went through and tried to name the cornerstone pieces. There's a bunch of maybes, but very few certainties. You need some of those guys to become certainties.
No question about it. Easton Freeze is with us from A to Z Sports. Easton, this is a theme that we've had really for the last week and a half since they drafted Carnell Tate. How patient do you think we should be, given that it is a new offense that Cam Ward is learning in his second year, 2 years, 2 offenses? He's got a couple of second-year guys that we've talked about, DK, Iomanner, and Helm, and you've got a rookie wide receiver that you hope quickly will be your number one guy. But given that whole thing, even though I hear a lot about Brian Daboll's offense is easy to learn, it's player-friendly, how realistic is it to think that Carnell Tate could get out of the gate that fast? Should we show some patience there?
You should, and I'll take a little bit bigger picture. We were just talking about this on the A to Z Sports YouTube channel. Every year in the offseason, when I look, not just at the Titans, but around the league, at which teams are going to be better and which are going to be worse, which position groups are going to improve or fall back the most. My default setting, when in doubt, is to go back to, okay, who has continuity? And that's not to say that you should just always keep your crappy roster the same, because then at least it'll be the same and you'll have continuity. But one of the taxes, one of the sin taxes you must pay when you have so much turnover like the Titans have had, is patience because of lack of continuity. We saw with the Titans offensive line last year, for example, how that was a unit they put together. We felt good about it going into the year, and there was a lot of frustration about that unit for up until the Week 10 bye, basically. And then down the back half of the season, when nothing mattered at that point, they started to play some sneaky, really good football, but nobody seemed to care at that point because the Titans sucked so much. I'm not saying that the Titans are going to absolutely stink for the first half of the year this year, but would it surprise anybody based on how much newness there is, based on the 2 new systems on each side of the ball that there are? If Cam Ward is really good at football and makes a year 2 leap, that's going to cover up a ton. Good quarterback play is the deodorant of an NFL roster. But if he is not taking some kind of like thermonuclear leap, there's going to be warts and there's going to be a lot of growing pains. And you're going to have to lean on some of the continuity of the players you were hoping to see less of. Like Cam Ward has continuity with Calvin Ridley and Chimere Dike and Elliotte Manor. That may mean that those guys are leaned on earlier than Wan'Dale Robinson and Carnell Tate. And so to your point about Carnell Tate, like that's okay. If he comes in and has the rookie year that A.J. Brown had, or the rookie year that we were talking about Chris Olave, the rookie year that Chris Olave had, or the rookie year that, if we're naming Ohio State receivers, Emeka Egbuka had. I was looking at his earlier today. He had almost 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns as a rookie this past year. Now, it took a lot of that Buccaneers crowded wide receiver room falling apart due to injury and playing inconsistently when they came back. And so, if Carnell Tate finishes the year with 600 or 700 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns, I think there are some folks that are going to look at that on paper and be like, what a terrible pick, what a waste of a season. The Titans did it again. They went full Titans. And I don't think that's fair expectations given where this team is.
I agree. I don't think there should be a freak out if that ends up happening. Easton, real quick, how would you rate, if you gave a rating from 1 to 10, the depth of the Titans last year? And of course, this is a dangerous word with potential. We've used that a bunch in this interview. The potential depth this year as opposed to last year, how much of an improvement do you think there is?
No, that's a great question, because last year the depth was truly awful. Now it's not awesome right now, and I'm going through the roster in my head. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, the improvement was like a solid, maybe a 5, which I know is kind of like fence riding, but my honest reaction is like, okay, it did an okay job improving the depth. You did about as much as you could do. And I say that because this team has, even coming into this offseason, was still so barren in terms of top-line players. That's where they had to focus was, hey, we got to get dudes to come in here and play football now. And we can work on developing and finding depth down the road. And they're still going to do that. And that they're going to add a lot of players to this depth chart. And, like last year we saw a guy come in August and then be one of the best pass rushers on the team. So it happens. But this is still a team that needs honestly, what has to happen is these young guys that don't become the foundational pieces, which not all of them will be, the Nick Singletons, and I don't want to put a ceiling on any of these guys. I'm just naming examples. The Fernando Carmonas and the Pat Coogan's. If these guys don't become starters, they need to become a bunch of Corey Levins. You know what I mean? A bunch of dudes that are just reliable. And if they have to play a couple of weeks, you aren't chewing your fingernails off on Sunday morning, worried about what they're going to be. That's when you develop depth as a team. But once the season starts in particular, it's really, really hard to focus on developing depth as a coaching staff because you're focused on your starters winning games.
Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports has been our guest on Dmase, Vingan, and Donick. Of course, you can read his work at A2ZSports.com as well as watch him on A to Z Sports YouTube channel. Easton, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up soon.
Always fun, guys. See you next time.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Easton had to say coming up next. I do want to focus specifically on Carnell Tate. And this is the question I have for all of you during the break, 615-737-1025. You heard Easton throw out some comps from draft analysts about Carnell Tate. Who must Carnell Tate become for Titans fans to feel he was the correct choice at number 4 overall? Give me a player comp. 615-737-1025. We'll discuss this more. We'll get Derek's thoughts on the wide receiver comp he thinks is best for Carnell Tate as well coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy, Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Hey, if you've lived in the Middle Tennessee area for any time, then you've seen how wild our weather can be, from winter storms, tornadoes, to flooding. We've seen it all. Like many of you, the winter storm earlier in the year caught me unprepared and off guard. I lost power for 7 days. That's 7 days out of my house, 7 days staying in a hotel, 7 days worrying about whether my pipes were going to burst or not. And I know, like me, many of you felt that way. And I felt paralyzed. But then I realized, listen, I got to do something about this. I can't be stuck in this situation again. It's no longer optional. It's something that I must do. So the next time one of these weather alerts or weather emergency come around, I'm able to stay in my house. And I know you feel just like I do as well. So I started to look around into whole home generators and found Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. They've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in generators for more than half of those, which is all great, people. But the reason I reached out to them was because of the reviews and confidence other homeowners shared about their experience with Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. When Tri-State came to the house, they did a free on-site assessment, and it made sure the generator fit my home for me and my family. The thing I appreciated the most is they didn't try to oversell anything. Just straight answers, turnkey, and they handle everything in-house, from long-term to installation to long-term service. And I've talked about this many. I hate going through a third party. I just like to call the person that put the thing in my house. I call them and they come out and fix it. And TriStar Water, Power, and Air is that type of business. So if something goes wrong, I don't call around. I make one call to Tri-State Water, Power, and Air because they got me covered. That's the kind of relationship I want, and I know that's the kind of relationship you want. So look, the weather isn't slowing down. Be careful. Be ready. Call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air today to protect you and your family. Find them at tristatewhywait.com. That's tristatewhywait.com.
Dmase, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The Game. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Thank you to Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports for joining us in the previous segment. And I want to piggyback off of something that we discussed with Easton during our interview. He wrote a story for A to Z Sports the other day with the headline, Best NFL Player Comps for Carnell Tate from Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay, other top draft evaluators for Titans wide receiver 1. So this is the question I asked all of you before the break, 615-737-1025. Who must Carnell Tate become for Titans fans to feel he was the correct choice at number 4 overall? Because I know there are some of you out there. Easton mentions it in the story. We heard it the day after the Titans drafted Carnell Tate. There are some of you out there who are worried that Carnell Tate will be the second coming of Corey Davis. So we have a couple of comps on our text line. We'll read them now. Josh says he needs to be the next Derek Mason, or what Tim Brown was for the Raiders. But here is something interesting. 2 texters in a row.
So we're talking like borderline Hall of Famer to be worth the 4th pick? I mean, that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah.
Another 2 texters back to back. One texter says he must become the next A.J. Brown. Anything else is a bust. Another texter says, I know this is a wild throw, but I feel his comp should be A.J. Brown. Now, I guess there are 2 different conversations we can have here because, Derek, you're the wide receiver expert. You happen to play the position in the NFL for 15 years. I would venture to say that you don't think Carnell Tate and A.J. Brown are similar receivers.
No, I don't. I don't. Not at all. Not even in college. I think AJ was just a different receiver in college. He's a more physical receiver. The body type is different. And it's shown in AJ's career. There are not many receivers like AJ Brown in the NFL, let alone in college. So I don't. My comp. I don't know how. Are they just talking about numbers? Because I know they can't be talking about style of play. So numbers.
That's the question, because I think some people, and this may be my fault from how I phrased the question, I think some people may say he's got to have A.J. Brown's numbers in order to be justified as the number 4 overall pick. A.J. Brown, 6 1,000-yard seasons and 7 tries in his career. Of course, he won the Super Bowl with the Eagles. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. But if you're talking about like what kind of player he becomes, like because the player you've mentioned, and it's mentioned in the story from Easton, is T. Higgins. I feel like even before the draft, when we would talk about Carnell Tate, and we didn't talk about Carnell Tate as much as we talked about David Bailey and Arvell Reese, of course, Jeremiah Love and Sonny Styles. We didn't really talk much about Carnell Tate because we didn't think the Titans would take a receiver at number 4 overall. But whenever we discussed Carnell Tate, you always went back to T. Higgins.
Carnell Tate was outside because I started watching Jeremiah Love closely toward the end of the year. And I just started to think like, man, okay, he may just be the perfect person for this Titan offense with this quarterback. So that's why I was so high on him, because it's so versatile. I sort of rethought what I was thinking. But at the beginning, I've always thought that I wanted to get T. Higgins in free agency. They were not able to get him in free agency because I thought, to me, I had seen enough. He was the number 1 receiver. It's just unfortunate he plays alongside another number 1 receiver in Jamar Chase, and they're 2 different type of receivers. So that's why they chose to keep T. Higgins, because he meant that much to his team. So we couldn't get him. So as I started to watch Carnell Tate, I'm like, this is the guy that reminds me so much of, that's his comp, T. Higgins. There's nobody out there other than T. Higgins that I've seen that is comparable as far as body type, everything else. Now, T. Higgins may be a little bit faster than what Carnell Tate is, but when you're talking about the skill set that he possesses, the ability to catch those to make those combat catches, that just didn't happen in the NFL. If you watched T. Higgins at Clemson, it was happening at Clemson. He broke all those records at Clemson. That's how good it. And they've had DeAndre Hopkins and the likes of that. So they've had some great receivers. But he was the guy that when I watched him, I'm like, man, this dude's damn good. And then seeing Carnell Tate, it's like just another version of T. Higgins. And if he can become T. Higgins, then you got exactly what you drafted at the 4th pick, an elite receiver your number one receiver, not only can he run short routes, he can run intermediate routes, he can run deep routes, but more importantly, he becomes a red zone, and a combat catch threat.
Willy,
That's his comp to me.
Willy, in 6 years in the NFL per 17 games, T. Higgins has averaged just under 80 receptions, around 1,100 yards, and 9 touchdowns per 17 games over 6 seasons in the NFL.
I think the per 17 games is something that you have to gauge, because missing time is a thing, right? And the season hasn't always been 17 games. So you have to recalibrate that a little bit, because staying on the field, as Derek Mason will tell you, is a skill, right? Not missing time is going to lead to more production. So all that to say, I think it's very dangerous to say he should be this guy or that guy. I'm not good enough to tell you on how his body type compares, or the type of role he's going to have, all of that. I would say that if he makes it to the second contract and he truly ends up being the number one threat on the team, I'm not going to really sweat whether it's 900 yards or 1,100 yards or 1,300 yards, any of that stuff. I think is he efficient? Does he get the second contract? And does he graduate up into the number one receiver? Everything else, I think, will take care of itself. And, of course, they got to win games. Like, who cares if he gets a lot of yards and they stink?
No, you're absolutely right. Ultimately, it comes down to whether they're winning games or not. And if they're winning games and he's not having, say, the numbers that people think he should, it sort of mask it, as long as he's out there being productive. But I do want to say this, because it hasn't dawned on me, that being drafted at that position, it does sort of warrant that per season there needs to be a minimum per season. I don't know what that, and I would say, I'm not going to say I don't know what that minimum is, but if I'm looking at elite number one receivers, all there, if they play 17 games, their numbers have to be in between, at the low end, 1,100 yards. It has to be.
Yeah.
The high end, maybe 18,
but
1900
let's look at the
yards.
extreme example on the other side. Traylon Burks. Number one thing was he wasn't ever on the field.
Yeah,
so
that's going to be a
his
big
per 17. Who cares what the per 17 was? He never was out there.
No, you're absolutely right. So but then if he's not out there as much, then that goes into another argument about, well, he's not reliable, so he can't be a number one. So again, you wasted that pick with a guy that's injured, even though he has no history of injury. It ain't like they drafted an injured person. He just got injured in the NFL, but people will look at that as, oh, he's missing too much time. And number one receivers, or somebody at that place and pick, you can't miss that much time. So I get what you're saying in regards to that, but there has to be a minimum, that games that he plays and the numbers that he gets. Unfortunately, I think it's unfair, but listen, me getting drafted in the 4th round compared to him getting drafted, in the 1st round, 4th overall pick, the expectation is totally different. If I get 700 yards, my first, it's like oh man, we got a diamond in the rough. But if I get 300 yards or 100 yards, like I did, nobody's batting an eye. They're like, okay, he's drafted in the 4th round. But if Carnell Tate gets 300 yards, regardless of if he played games or not, if he gets 300 yards, people are going to be looking at it as, you know what? You draft, even though I know it takes time in this league to develop, people are going to look at it as you wasted a pick.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on Carnell Tate, which we will do, of course, throughout the offseason. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we transition to the Nashville Predators. Elliotte Friedman will join us at the top of the hour. But before we get to Elliotte, there is a question about the Predators GM search I've been wondering about. I think Willy's been wondering about it. Maybe even Derek's been wondering about it. We'll bring it up coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
I mean, I'm hearing all the same thing that everyone's hearing, and the Tom Fitzgerald is, I don't know if preferred candidate is too strong, but that's certainly the way that it seems. I think that there's a healthy dose of Bill Scott, who I really do admire. Bill's been with the Edmonton Oilers now. I think it goes back to Craig McTavish. So that'd be 4 general managers, cap wizard, hardworking guy, Michigan State, the whole deal. Brett Peterson from the 2-time Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, general manager of Team USA at the World Hockey Championships. Scott White, who was the runner-up in the Toronto Maple Leaf search, the assistant general manager of the Dallas Stars. I mean, we're all sort of hearing the same names, and it seems as if that's where the Predators have drilled down. But I think we're all on the same page here, guys. It seems as if he wants it and they can come to a deal, I'm going to guess that this is Tom Fitzgerald's position to lose.
That was Jeff Marek of Daily Faceoff on our program yesterday, talking about the Predators GM search. Elliotte Friedman, Jeff's old co-host, easy for me to say, co-host. I almost said Cold Stone. I don't know why. Ice cream on the mind, perhaps. Jeff's old co-host on 32 Thoughts, the podcast, will join us at the top of the hour. We'll get back into the GM search with Elliotte in just a few moments. But you hear what Jeff Marek said to us yesterday on the program. It seems like it's Tom Fitzgerald's job to lose as Predators GM. And Willie, you and I were talking about this as we were leaving yesterday, because we've wondered what's been taking so long. It's been more than 3 months since Barry Trotz announced his retirement as Predators GM. We've seen the Devils part with Fitzgerald and hire a new GM. We've seen the Toronto Maple Leafs hire a new GM, and yet the Predators are still searching for theirs. So here's the question you and I were discussing, and I'm curious what our listeners think as well. 615-737-1025. If Tom Fitzgerald is the Predators' next GM, wouldn't we have known that by now? I'm wondering if perhaps Fitzgerald's already in the fold, maybe as president of hockey operations, and the Predators are waiting on one of those names Marek listed: Bill Scott, Scott White, Brett Peterson. Maybe they're waiting for one of those assistant GMs to sign on the dotted line so the Predators can announce at the same time, hey, we've hired Tom Fitzgerald and Brett Peterson. But if it were just Fitzgerald as the GM, don't you think we would have heard by now that he was indeed the GM?
I have 2 theories on this. And I was intrigued by what Jeff Marek said there. He went pretty far. I don't happen to think that it's a foregone conclusion by any stretch, but my 2 theories are, one, related to what you said, Adam. It's very plausible that, like the Maple Leafs, the Predators might roll out a combination of two people for the gig. Maybe Fitzgerald is one, the former player, experienced GM, and maybe it's coupled with somebody who has been an assistant, but also might be more of an analytics Jedi, so to speak, right? Maybe that's a combination. I could see that as being something that could look pretty impressive on paper. The other theory I have is not so much your question of wouldn't we know it if Fitzgerald has it. My theory is I feel like we would know if Tom Fitzgerald is out. I think if he were out of the mix, we would know it, because, I just don't think you would take your first ever captain and string him along this long if he is out of the race. So those are my 2 theories. I have no idea if I'm right or not. I have purposely stayed out of this. I'm not digging for information here, partially because, it's really not my place. But I just, from an outside perspective, I'm very intrigued every day, just like everybody else who follows the Predators, on what they're going to do here. And, I've known Tom Fitzgerald because I was with the team as a young announcer the very first year. So that's when I met Tom Fitzgerald. I've known him for a long, long time. I have a ton of respect for him. I'm not necessarily rooting for him to get the job. I would be excited for him, but I'm not going to sit there and say he should be the guy or he should not be the guy. But those are my two theories.
All right, Derek, you love a theory.
Yes.
So which theory do you think is more plausible? The one I threw out there, which was Fitzgerald's already in the fold. They know he's going to be a part of this in some capacity, and that the Predators are waiting for an assistant GM on another team to accept the job as GM of the Predators so that the Predators can announce Tom Fitzgerald and insert new GM here at the same time. Or Willy's other theory, which is if Fitzgerald were out of the running, considering his connection to the franchise, we would have heard that by now.
I think both are plausible. I think, I can buy into or be sold on both theories. Okay, let me explain Willy's theory. I think that would be because he is a familiar face or a familiar name surrounding the Nashville Predators. And if he wasn't a part of sort of the search,
if he weren't in the running,
in the running for GM, then that would have been said. I think that it would have gotten out somehow, some way. But because that hasn't happened, makes me think, like you have said, Adam, is he's in the mix, but they're waiting on someone else so they can say it all at one time. Whoever it is, and Tom Fitzgerald could be a guy that's at the top of the list. So I can buy into both of them, but I've heard more of, sort of what you're saying than possibly what Willy has said. And what Willy said isn't wrong, but I think that has been more talked about what you said, Adam, waiting for that second guy, trying to do it all at once. Then, no, he's not a part of this.
One texter says, Tom Fitzgerald and Ryan Getzlaf. Correct me if I'm wrong, Willy, but Elliotte Friedman has mentioned Ryan Getzlaf. I believe you've asked him about Ryan Getzlaf. Of course, former member of the Anaheim Ducks. Predators fans don't really like Ryan Getzlaf, the player. But I believe he lives here in
he
town.
was right at the top of the list.
Oh, he was up
just
there.
behind Corey Perry is on those nasty
Ryan Kessler.
Really good
yes.
Ducks team.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Boy, they
Getzlaf.
were
Predators fans, no love lost for Ryan Getzlaf, the player. But I believe he lives here in town. And I feel like when you asked Elliotte about Getzlaf in the past, he said that he may not be right for the Predators because they're looking for someone with front office experience of some kind. Maybe he wants to get in, but maybe he's not there. I can't remember exactly what he said to you, but I believe he's ruled Getzlaf out here.
Well, I think he ruled him out as the main man. I think he kept him in the mix if there was a secondary guy. And so the way it would look to me, where the formula that Getzlaf might be in the equation would be if you hired a main GM or whatever title you want to assign, the main man, who's got a little bit more of the analytics background, and you wanted to mesh him with a guy like Getzlaf, who brings a lot to the table as a former player.
So sort of like what's happening in Toronto right now with John Chayka and Matt Sundin. He would play the Matt Sundin
I could see
role.
that. I could see that. And then, but see, Tom Fitzgerald being the former player, I think the compliment to him might be somebody that's got a little bit more of the numbers-driven thing. So to me, that's what I would be looking at, but that's just me. You can't rule anything out. You certainly, but let's again go back to if you're Tom Fitzgerald, right? He was relatively late in terms of being interviewed, right? I think if just we ask Elliotte about it every week, right? And he said a few weeks ago, Tom Fitzgerald would be interviewing next week. And that was maybe 2 weeks ago? And that at some point, if you're Tom Fitzgerald, you have to be sitting there waking up every day going, look, it's not like he may have another job that he's waiting on, but it's time to know, right? Either you know that he's the guy or not. And you have to wonder if you're him, like, who are they waiting on? Is there somebody else that might become available in the next few weeks when the second round ends? These are all things that just run through my mind, and I don't know what the answer is.
So the names that Jeff Marek mentioned in that clip. Scott White, Bill Scott, and Brett Peterson. I hope I'm getting this correct. Bill Scott is in Edmonton, and Edmonton's been eliminated from the playoffs. Scott White is in Dallas. Dallas has been eliminated from the playoffs. I believe Brett Peterson, he's with the Florida Panthers. They've been eliminated.
Right.
But he's also working for Team USA for the World Championships, which are getting ready to start,
Right.
I think. So,
yes. By the way, Riker Lee and Ryan Ufko, Predators, named to Team USA. Team USA, you won't recognize a lot of the names. It's a little thin. I think a lot of guys have just either said no or just are completely worn out and not able to play. But for those reasons, pretty intriguing. Riker Lee, especially at his age, Michigan State, Dmase,
Absolutely.
will be
Go
playing
green,
for
go
Team
white.
USA.
so
But all of these things run through. So it's a great point, Adam. There doesn't seem to be a reason why you couldn't name those guys. But there's also this is also part of the title, right? For the team to release them, it's got to be a promotion.
correct.
So that would be like who's the president of hockey ops, who's the GM. Sometimes you use those titles just so you can say this assistant GM is being promoted to our team. If he's an assistant, because I could argue that he's really just the same role, it's just a different title, but your role is the same. You're really the assistant. You're the second guy in charge. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there's a haggling over that, or if there's guys that we don't even know that, because those names are out there everywhere.
Elliotte
right?
mentioned the
White-
curveball. Remember, he mentioned the curveball
He
a couple of
mentioned the
weeks ago.
curveball.
We
But
can ask
White
him if
and-
he has any read on the curveball in just a few minutes. But
Yes. White and Peterson, though, have been named in every article,
yes,
every
from the
interview.
beginning. From the beginning.
Right. So we don't really know. Those that could be the agents. That could be the there's a certain game that these guys play sometimes to get their name out. There could be other guys that don't have their name out that are very much behind the scenes in contention. So I'm curious about that. I'll give you just one off the top of my head. When I watch the playoffs, I would tell you right now, if I'm the Predators, I would be getting into Carolina's kitchen, and I would be finding out in their analytics department, give me the best guy that is available.
Well, remember the report
and
from
bring him
Elliotte
into
a few weeks ago. Reportedly, Elliotte said on Hockey Night in Canada that the Predators reached out to Carolina's actual GM, Eric Tulsky,
Right.
the ultimate analytics GM, and they were turned down.
He is clearly brilliant, but that's different than
Of course.
that doesn't
course.
surprise me at all. You're not going to poach another team's GM very easily. But the second guy in charge, who's been working under Tulsky, I'd be researching that because Carolina has got something figured out. It is incredible how they are able to pretty efficiently and economically reload their team year after year. They're doing something right. I would want to research that.
Well, you can ask Elliotte Friedman about that coming up next.
Okay.
615-737-1025. Sportsnet's Elliotte Friedman will join us. We'll bring him into the Predators GM search conversation. We'll talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs, of course, and more with Elliotte Friedman coming up next. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. Dmase, Vingan, Donick, 102.5. The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We are efforting SportsNet NHL insider Elliotte Friedman. He'll join us momentarily as we will get back into the Predators GM search, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and more with our friend Elliotte Friedman in just a matter of moments. In the meantime, let's get to some of your reaction on the Predators GM search. 615-737-1025. Nate says, could this be where the Predators have known all along it's Fitzgerald, but they wanted to wait so it didn't seem like it was predetermined for the Predators fans that wanted outside the family, where the first captain being the next GM looks like inside the family, even though he's been gone for a long time, lessen the backlash on the organization? I mean, there are a lot of PR professionals over there. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that's something they're thinking about.
I wouldn't buy that.
I'm not going to buy that conspiracy theory. That one I'm not going to buy. Even though it may look good, sound good, but nah.
Steven from Hendersonville says, hold on, let me scroll back up. There's also a very strange combination of words in this text, so be listening for it at the end. If Fitzgerald is the new GM, then count me out. That hiring will signify the Preds are destined to be stuck in the mushy middle. Poyle lost his fastball and endorsed/named Trotz his successor. It would appear Trotz is doing the same with Fitzgerald. That front office would be loaded with incestuous stains. I do not like that at all. Phrasing. Phrasing.
Are we forgetting that Barry Trotz won a Stanley Cup for Washington
yes.
and also coached the Islanders to 2 Final Four? That just baffles me. Why? Like, it'd be one thing if those guys had always been with the Predators,
right?
Fitzgerald and Trotz, but it's hardly the case.
I understand your point.
Fitzgerald even more than Trotz.
I do not like the phrasing of incestuous stains. I mean, come on,
it's not a good one.
No, phrasing. That's when the kids say. That's when the kids say phrasing. But look, I've said this before, and Willie, you've made your point, and I understand it. I'm not ignoring the facts here. Tom Fitzgerald has not been a part of this organization for 25 years. But I do think that if he is the hire, he is going to have to sort of fight from underneath. And what I mean by that is, I think he is going to have to, in the minds of many Predators fans, I think he's going to have to prove that he was the right man for the job and that he wasn't a candidate solely because he was the first captain in team history. I'm not claiming, by the way, that that's the only reason why he's a candidate, but we see it on the text line. I have my reservations. We can talk about his record as Devils GM. I'm sure we'll get into that if he is indeed the hire. We've touched on it a little bit. But regardless, I do think there are enough Predators fans who do want to go outside the family, to quote the other texter, that if Fitzgerald is the hire, he's not starting at the starting line. I think he's starting like 5 paces behind the starting line, and he'll have to prove that he was indeed the right man for the job
based upon his relationship prior, connection with the Predators.
His tenure in New Jersey. And look, when you're a GM and you get let go, it's because you didn't do your job. Exactly. Ultimately, you didn't do it to the satisfaction of your other organization. His record in New Jersey, not just the win-loss record, but the drafting record, the transaction record. It's a mixed bag. But again, you would say that about any fired GM, right?
Exactly.
But when you add on top of that the fact that the Predators have been an organization that's incredibly loyal, the most recognizable face in franchise history, Barry Trotz, is the GM now. David Poyle was the GM for a long time. You've got Andrew Burnett, an original member of the Predators, scored the first goal in Predators history as the coach. I understand the idea of, hey, let's hire someone who wasn't involved in the Predators in some form or fashion. So that's my point, is that if an unaffiliated GM were starting at the starting line, I think Fitzgerald is starting like 3 or 4 paces behind the starting line in the eyes of Predators fans.
I think that his track record with the Devils is completely relevant. And part of that, by the way, is, and I don't know if he specifically brought Andrew Burnett in to be the assistant for Lindy Ruff, but bringing in Andrew Burnett as the assistant to Lindy Ruff led to a great season for the Devils. So that is a relationship that goes back a long way. but that's just part of the mixed bag. To me, everything that happened in New Jersey is very pertinent to whether you think he could be the right guy. The fact that he played for the Predators a long time ago, to me, is only a strength. It has nothing to, there's nothing against that. That's a good thing that he knows Nashville. And by the way, when he was traded in 2001, I don't believe there was a Music City Center. I don't think there was a Country Music Hall of Fame. I don't think there was an Omni. Like, there's tons of things that have changed from that in Nashville since he was there. Like, it was way, way different. It's been so long, 24 years. Like, he's been out of Nashville for that long and continuously. So to me, he is not considered, it's nothing close to being the lifelong in the family. For example, if they were to have hired Jeff Kelty or somebody or Brian Poyle or somebody that has been in the family and just moving up and just being promoted from within. It's two ends of the spectrum.
Hair Metal Henry said that Fitzgerald and Brunette play on the line together with the Predators. That may determine his coaching status. I don't know if they played on the line together. They were teammates.
They were teammates.
Yes.
I mean, Barry Trotz shuffled the deck a lot. He didn't have, as Terry Crisp used to say, that, that expansion team, you didn't have a lot of kings and aces and jack, you didn't have a lot of face cards, right? He said, you can shuffle the deck all you want, but you're going to have a lot of 5s and 6s and 2s and 8s, right? But they changed the line. I wouldn't doubt that they were on the same line on a certain night, but they were different types of players, right? Andrew Brunette, more of a grinding power play guy, skill guy. Tom Fitzgerald, more of that checking guy. Craig
says, I don't understand why we would not target, let's say, the top 5 to 8 teams in the league and seek their assistant GMs. God forbid we go hire someone who comes from some success. Well, Willie mentioned the Carolina Hurricanes. Scott White is the assistant GM in Dallas. Brett Peterson, the assistant GM in Florida. And that would be my preference too. Find someone looking for their first opportunity who comes from an organization with a culture of winning at the highest level. The reason why I focus in on, I believe it's Scott White, Bill Scott White. It's hard to remember the two. I believe Scott White is the one in Dallas. The one thing the Predators have not done much in their history, as we've discussed at length, is sink to the bottom of the standings in draft number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. The Stars have a fantastic track record of success drafting, no pun intended, star players where you wouldn't normally draft star players late in the first round, early in the second round, whether it's Jason Robertson or Wyatt Johnston, Jay Gottinger, so on and so forth. So I like that idea because I think it meshes with what the Predators want to do. All right, we do have our friend Elliotte Friedman of SportsNet on the phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Elliotte, of course, is presented by Old National Bank and Green Ventures Landscaping. Hi, Elliotte. How are you?
Hey, I'm sorry about that. For some reason, my hotel in Buffalo, we couldn't get connected there. I don't know what was going on.
That's okay. We appreciate the time, as always. So it's time for our requisite Predators GM search question, Elliotte. I want to ask you the question we were discussing before you came on. As we await the Predators' announcement of a new GM, I've been wondering if Tom Fitzgerald was the guy. Wouldn't we know by now? Or is this a situation like in Toronto where the Maple Leafs announced 2 hires at the same time and the Predators are waiting for someone else to join Fitzgerald, hypothetically?
I'm not saying you're wrong, Adam. I just hadn't heard that. I have wondered, I have wondered exactly what is going on here. I'll admit I'm not 100% sure. I've checked in periodically this week to check around and see if anybody believed anything was imminent. I don't expect anything this afternoon, for example, Nashville time. Like I said about a week ago, I think there's something here or somebody here we're not seeing. And I think that the Predators wanted to hear from more potential people. I still wonder if there's somebody we're not seeing, because it's been about a week and a half now since they've interviewed Fitzgerald. And if they absolutely 100% wanted to anoint him I agree. I think we know already.
Over the past couple of days, Elliotte, we've been talking about whether now is the time for the Predators to swing big in the trade market, since it appears that they are set on competing for the playoffs next season and still getting the most out of an older core, Roman Josi, Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, etc. We've discussed Austin Matthews. We've discussed Brady Tkachuk and their respective situations. Are there any other notable players around the league who you think could shake loose this offseason?
I think Jason Robertson is going to be an interesting one. I think the Dallas Stars will have a line, and they are not willing to go past. And I'm not convinced they'll be willing to go past that line. And I think that line will be around Mikko Rantanen's number, which is 12. So, he's a guy that I would be potentially looking at. I think Elias Pettersson from Vancouver is going to be another one potentially. That is a player who could be available out there. Vancouver would definitely want a center in return for him, but Pettersson is another name that I would think about. So those are probably the two names that jump out at me immediately. I think that St. Louis has kicked around the idea of potentially Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, but those guys have control, and the price, particularly on Thomas, would be astronomical. But those would be some players I would be looking at and thinking that those are some of the guys who could be available this offseason.
An uneventful week in Toronto, Elliotte. Nothing much happened in your hometown.
It was pretty interesting. I mean, it was. I don't know. I mean, if you like, when it comes to Steve Simmons' question, hey, I think if you're going to be general manager of a major team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, there's going to be days like that. You just got to shrug them off and move on, which is what I think they did. I think he has to battle a bit of skepticism, but ultimately, how he does in the job is going to determine how he's perceived. They got a big gift the next day.
Yes,
they won the lottery. It'll be interesting, and I think at some point in time they're going to meet face to face with Austin Matthews here. But somebody said, "Is that the craziest day you've ever dealt with?" And I said, I'm not even sure it's in the top 25. So when you work sports in Toronto, you see stuff like this all the time. Now, by the way, Adam,
yes,
you gave me some homework last week.
Yes.
And, and so I did it. And I went to our two draft gurus at SportsNet. So Jason Bukala, who used to work for the Florida Panthers and now works for us, he said that he has a tier that's 1 to 4. And then he has another tier that's like 5 to 9. And then he's got another tier that's 9 to 16. And he says at 10, the Predators should get a pretty good player, assuming they don't move around. And then our other guy, Sam Cosentino, he's got a tier that's 1 to 6 and then 7 to 12. So if right now at 10, you're in one of our guys' second tier, and for our other guy, it's the top of his third tier. So that's kind of what our two guys think.
Well, you get a big smiley face on your homework assignment. We do appreciate that, Elliotte.
No, I didn't get a lot of those, so I'll take it.
I do want, before I hand it off, I do want to ask you about the top 10 of the NHL draft. As you mentioned, Toronto winning the lottery. We don't often see top 10 draft picks in the NHL get moved. Are there any teams in that top 10 that you think are willing to listen on moving their top 10 pick before the draft next month?
There's three I would think about immediately. Chicago at number 4. They are clearly willing to do it. But as Kyle Davidson, the GM, said the night of the lottery, as you said, Adam, it rarely happens that high. I think Seattle will be another one, and Florida picking 9. Those are 3 of the teams I'm looking at that I think would be willing to make some moves.
We're talking with Elliotte Friedman, 32 Thoughts podcast. Now, Elliotte, in this year's playoffs, which team is it going pretty much like you thought it was? It seems like to me, Carolina and Colorado are the two teams that are sort of the juggernauts in all of this. But obviously, Buffalo, they're doing well. Montreal, that series, Buffalo's up 1-0, and then the Vegas and Anaheim series, they're tied. But has this gone the way you thought it would go?
I would say this, Derek. Like Carolina being 6-0 has surprised me a bit. I thought the Ottawa series, like Carolina was number one in the East for a reason. I think they're really good, Derek. But I didn't think they'd sweep Ottawa. I didn't think they'd be 6-0 and in the middle of the second round. Like that has surprised me. They've been even better than I thought they were going to be. And they're going to be a very difficult challenge for whoever wins that Buffalo-Montreal series. Buffalo and Montreal, I'm not surprised that both those teams won. I thought Buffalo was going to win for sure, and I thought Montreal-Tampa was a toss-up, which it basically turned out to be 7 one-goal games. Montreal was not very good in game one last night, I think. I just don't think they were emotionally there yet, Derek, and I think that series will get a lot better. I am shocked at Colorado and Minnesota that they're up 2-0 as comfortably as they are. Like that first game was wild, but the one thing is that Minnesota is really good, and Colorado through 2 games was basically doing whatever they wanted to them. I was surprised at that. I think we all knew Colorado was good. I'm not surprised they blew out Los Angeles. I am surprised at how much they dominated Minnesota in the first 2 games of that series. And, I would say this, Anaheim, I knew they were going to be good. I didn't think they were going to be this good this quickly, Derek, and they could beat Vegas. They played the first 2 games very well against them.
We're talking to Elliotte Friedman, 32 Thoughts, the podcast, Hockey Night in Canada. Elliotte, I heard you mention this, and first of all, I forget what line you used, but it was funny. There's just an incredible amount of time between games 2 and 3 for Minnesota, so they have a chance maybe to get a little
2 sightings of Haley's Comet.
Right, yes, Haley's Comet coming through not once but twice between games 2 and 3. But Minnesota clearly needs Joel Eriksson-Ek. He would be a big difference maker, especially given how tough Colorado is at the center position, how deep they are. Do you still think he could come back and play?
They said he hasn't even started skating yet. Like that's a bad sign, Willy. I've learned in the NHL never to count these guys out. They will go through car crashes and suffer the kinds of damages you suffer in car crashes, and they will play. Never say never, but when they said today that he hasn't even started skating yet, I was like, oh, that's a bad sign. Now, if he skates tomorrow, I think then we're cooking with gas here. But if he doesn't skate tomorrow, I'd be really concerned about it.
Let's circle back to another team that we've already mentioned here, Carolina. In terms of the Nashville job, just as looking at it from afar, Carolina just looks like they make great decisions year in and year out from an analytical standpoint, where a lot of the role players change over. They seem to make the right choice a lot. And I know you reported before that Eric Tolsky, they asked and they said no, which nobody would be surprised at. But is there a second guy or a third guy there in an analytics department that Nashville should have their eye on?
Well, they interviewed one of them, Darren York. Carolina has 2 guys. One of his name is Tyler Dello, and the other is Darren York. Nashville interviewed Darren York. Remember, it seems like 40 years ago. But remember when the Predators brought in four guys 1 week, that they went through that search, and they brought in Brett Peterson, and they brought from Florida, and they brought in Bill Scott from Edmonton. Well, one of the guys they brought in was Darren York from Carolina. And Darren York has been in Carolina, I think, for 16 years, maybe even more than that. 16, 17 years. I'd have to go back and check, actually. And he's actually a great story. He wanted to get hired by the Hurricanes, and he kept calling them like every day, and they wouldn't hire him. And then one year at the draft, he bought a ticket, and he sat next to the Carolina draft all weekend. The table. He sat right, and then Jim Rutherford looked at him and said, "Okay, enough's enough. You've convinced me," and they hired him. And so he's been with the organization there for 16 years, I think, maybe more. And he was interviewed with them as one of the initial 4. And I guess for whatever case, whatever reason, he just didn't close the deal because it hasn't happened. You know, the thing about Carolina is they play a unique system, Willie. They're very straight lines. They always seem to go forward, and in their defensive zone, they play man-to-man. And a lot of teams don't play man-to-man in the NHL. They're one of the few that does. And so they really target guys who fit their system. Like one of the reasons Mikko Rantanen from Dallas didn't last in Carolina was because he didn't play the way that he's a more creative guy. He didn't play the way that Carolina liked to play, and that was one of the reasons it didn't work out. So the one thing they do really well is they have a coach who's got a real force of personality there, and Rod Brindamore. He plays a certain way, and they try to target guys who fit, like Mark Jankowski, who you guys know pretty well. They targeted him, and he's been fantastic for them in the playoffs.
A great pickup for them. He was pretty darn good for the Predators as well. Elliotte, you got me thinking with Elias Pettersson. We've kind of thrown these names out as they've come up. Brady Tkachuk and Austin Matthews, and down the road, who knows if Connor McDavid will end up in this discussion someday. But it's like, hey, if you're the Predators and you're looking for a big fish and you have a lot to offer, Pettersson is one I hadn't thought of. What has happened to him? Because he at one point was a star on the rise, a can't miss, and he's clearly taken a step back. So what's going on there?
I think there's a couple of things. Number one, I think Vancouver's dressing room, they had kind of an implosion. And he was kind of in the middle of it. There were some real battles between teammates, and they weren't all getting along, and he was affected by it. Pettersson has battled some injuries. They prevented him from training to the best of his ability, and as a result, he, a couple of years ago, wasn't able to train fully all summer. Didn't show up in great shape. He's had trouble getting back to being the same player. Like when he was first starting out, he was always kind of stoic, but he did have like a joie de vivre to him, right? And the big plays, the big moments, he clearly loved it. He seems to have lost a little bit of that passion, and he's got to get it back. He's got to be ready to start the season on time. He's got to get the passion back. Like when you look at him, he just doesn't seem as if he's as happy playing the game as he was when he first started. And Willie, I think that you have to really be passionate and committed to be great at it. And he just has seemed to lack that the last couple of years. And I think there's a really good player there. And I have wondered he doesn't like to say it. He says, I want to stay here. And part of me thinks it's just because he doesn't want to throw gasoline on the fire. But you can't help but look at his situation and say, maybe a change of scenery would benefit everybody involved.
Elliotte Friedman, SportsNet NHL Insider, has been our guest on Dmase. Vingan and Donick. He joins us every Thursday during hockey season, and he is presented by Old National Bank and Green Ventures Landscaping. Elliotte, as always, a pleasure. Enjoy Buffalo. We look forward to your coverage of Game 2 tomorrow.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great weekend.
615-737-1025. Once again, Elliotte Friedman, presented by Old National Bank and Green Ventures Landscaping. We'll react to what Elliotte had to say coming up next. Plus, it is a sad day for those of us who love a certain thing in sports. We'll discuss that coming up next as well. 615-737-1025. Willy, Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
All right, let's talk Lone Pronto. Hey, it's no different today than it has been the last few weeks. we know the gas prices are crazy and the interest rates are crazy. And right now, people are trying to get creative and figure out how do I get a handle on my finances, improve my situation? Well, Loan Pronto wants you to know about their rapid equity loan because you may not realize that you can use the equity in your home to access hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash or however much you need to pay off that credit card bill that is just eating away at your monthly budget with that 29% interest rate, or that car loan that's got double-digit interest rates and it's eating up your monthly budget. Think about how much money you're spending that you could save. One client, for example, they got $100,000 out of their home's equity with the rapid equity loan from Loan Pronto. They saved over $1,500 a month because of what they did. And so because you can pay off those bills. You can do it all from your phone as well. It doesn't take very long to get the process started. Zero out of pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long drawn out bank process. Rates are at near 3-year lows, so call right now, 615-499-5780. Find out how much you can save or go to loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or visit loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
Dmase, Vingan and Donick, 102.5 The Game. It is 5:32, so hopefully those of you working 9 to 5s are on your way home right now. And if you are, thank you for joining us, as always, on your commute home. As always, a pleasure to talk to Elliotte Friedman from SportsNet. We always learn so much. I do want to react to one thing he said, Willie, and you asked him the question at the end. As we are discussing players who the Predators could target if they became available, Austin Matthews, Brady Tkachuk. I've got 2 words for Elias Pettersson. Hard pass. I have absolutely zero interest in the Predators acquiring Elias Pettersson. You heard what Elliotte...
Because well, I mean, you would get him for... I would guess, if you're interested, you're trying to get him for pennies on the dollar. It's not... You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, that's the context of it. You're trying to take a shot at a revival of a guy that's at 100 points. So tell me why you would not even... You wouldn't consider
Well, first of all, with Vancouver retained salary, he has a cap hit of $11.6 million.
Ooh, man.
$11.6 million. That's really not that much with the cap going up. That's not crazy.
I mean,
when he signed it, it was a huge amount of money. Now it really isn't a budget blowing kind of thing.
But if you're taking a swing on a guy, they got to at least take some of the money.
I mean,
or you give them less, right? If they retain salary, then you probably have to throw more at them to get them to take it.
But to me, I'm not paying someone $11.6 million who has 57 points per 82 games over his past 2 seasons. I know he had a 102-point season in 2022-2023. As you said, Willie, he looked like a star on the rise. The following season, he had 89 points, which is nothing to turn your nose up at. But from afar, that's the key word here. From afar, I have concerns about his commitment level.
Well, he's been lost for 2 years. It's not even a secret, right? He's been brutal for 2 straight years.
I think it's a huge
nobody
risk.
seems to be able to figure it out. But if he got out of Vancouver and you didn't have to pay the freight to get him, I would at least I'd be kicking the can on it and just seeing what Vancouver's willing to do. Like I think Vancouver's got to be at wit's end, right? They got a new GM coming in there. They might just be saying, you know what, let's just get him out of here and start over. I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, I mean, if they are putting him in the bin, we've talked about the bin, right? The discount bin you used to see at the gas station or the car wash. If they're putting Elias Pettersson in the bin, maybe. But
I think anything that would involve serious discussion would start with him being in the bin. In my mind,
if he's in the bin,
his stock is down. He's had 2 terrible seasons, so he has to be in the bin.
If he's in the bin, maybe I'll when you go to the gas station or the car wash and you look at the bin and you see a movie you remember, like, hey, I like this movie, and you kind of look at it. You open the case, make sure that the DVD isn't cracked or anything like that. Maybe I do that with Elias Pettersson. I'm like, oh, a gently used Elias Pettersson. That's interesting. But I like they're so
frustrated with him in that city. Of course, it's a fishbowl city where, and there was that whole thing with JT Miller that Elliotte referenced. I just think it haunts him. Like, I think if you got him out of there, you could at least have a chance to revive him. And if you're not paying full price to get him, or it takes less to trade to get him because he's making 11.6 and he hasn't been worth anywhere near that for a couple years, I don't know. It's something I would look at if he's just there for the taking.
One texter says, I think the GM will be Darren York from Carolina for sure. He's the only AGM who is confirmed to be interviewed, who is still in the playoffs. They wouldn't announce it now. I like that story Elliotte told about Darren York trying to get hired by the Hurricanes and just showing up to the draft.
Yeah.
To be
he told
seen.
That on the podcast too. That was a really interesting story.
Yeah. So look, we'll see. We're all one texter says, what kind of car washes does Adam go to that have discount bins? I mean, it's been a minute. It could be a gas station. It could be a gas station. It could be a convenience store. We've all been
Truck
there.
stop.
Yeah, truck stop.
I think
Perfect.
of Walmart.
Walmart,
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're just walking by and you happen to notice an album
Clearance
or
sale.
yeah,
Clearance sale.
like Goodwill. If they're putting Elias Pettersson in the Goodwill, like I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
he's
Well, how about this? Like
he
you're
smells a
in
little
the-
bit like mothballs, but I'll just put him in the washing machine.
Right. Or you're at the Mets.
few times.
You're at the Mets Pro Shop, right? And they have Pete Alonso jerseys that are really in good shape. Pete Alonso played for the Mets for a long time, but he's not on the Mets anymore. So he's on the clearance rack, and you're like, do I want this? Is a really nice jersey. I'm getting it for like half price because he's not on the team anymore. You think about it.
One texter says that exact scenario is why I own Tommy Boy on DVD. Like, I mean, Tommy, that's
Okay.
That's a good movie.
That's
Good
perfect.
example.
It's just like, oh, I like Tommy Boy. I'll throw $1 at a DVD. 615-737-1025. Of course, we're DVD, and we will wrap up the show coming up next. As I said, today is a sad day for those of us who love what I believe is the greatest sporting event there is. We'll discuss coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willy Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. Dmase, Finken, and Donick here on 102.5 The Game. Willie, Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Finken. And whenever I'm feeling sad, I listen to Sarah McLachlan.
This makes you feel sad?
It does. It does. It makes me feel
sadder.
Sad. It makes me feel sad. It's what I play when I'm sad.
I don't want to feel sadder.
But I do feel sad. You know why I feel sad?
Why is that?
We're here to pay respects, Willie and Derek, to the 68-team men's NCAA basketball tournament. The NCAA announced today it's official. 76 teams starting next season. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Have you seen what the bracket looks like now? I just texted it to y'all. Have you seen what it looks like now? It looks like somebody took a bucket of red paint and threw it on the Mona Lisa. That's what it looks like.
It's messy. It's messy.
I'm
It's
sad.
You know who loves it? You know who loves it?
Who's that?
Vegas.
Well, of course.
Vegas loves it.
That's a good point.
And by the way,
wow.
Joe Rexroad himself will join the program tomorrow at 4. He wrote a column about this. We know how he feels about it. We'll talk to Rexroad about this tomorrow at 4 o'clock, but I'm sad. And for those of you who are wondering how it's all going to work now, from ESPN, with the increase to 76, the first 4 doubleheaders on back-to-back days in Dayton will be replaced by a 12-game opening round. The Tuesday and Wednesday of the men's tournament will feature 12 games played by 24 teams in 2 different cities. There will now be 3 games each day in Dayton and 3 games each day in a second city yet to be determined, with sources telling ESPN's Pete Thamel that the second site is expected to be west of the Eastern time zone to help with logistics. And look, I get it. Will I watch a lot of these games? Probably, but I'm not going to be happy about it. Let's just continue to dilute the greatest sporting event, in my opinion, there is. Just what we need. 17-16 Auburn making the tournament. Let's just invite every school. Why don't we just open it up, Willie, to every school in Division I? It doesn't matter if you're 30-0 or 1-29. You're in. Make it a month long. I don't care.
You get a bid.
It's moving in that direction.
You get a bid.
It is. I mean, listen, we all know why this is done. It's done for more money. It has nothing to do with, oh, this team can get in because, they were borderline last year and we need to have the most teams to earn competitive, have the most competitive games around. So that means you get more SEC, Big Ten teams, ACC. No, it's about money. And it's always going to be about money. So if they can figure out a way to get it to 86 in the next 10 years, it will happen.
Oh, God.
It's just the way it is. They can't say, oh, this is it. We're going to stop. No more. No, they ain't going to say that. And listen, as much as we're going to complain about it leading up and whatever, and even if the games are duds, it's still going to be March Madness. And we still gonna lap it up like a dog to a food bowl or a water bowl. We're just gonna take it all in.
I mean, Willie,
want more.
I'm looking at. Even Joe Lenardi himself posted a bracketology update today with 76 teams, and I'm looking at all of the play-ins here. It's
from last year.
No, he's projecting this year's field with 76 teams.
Oh wow. Whew.
Nearly a year out, but I'm looking at all of these extra play-ins, and I'm just like, why mess with perfection? Why mess with perfection? I mean, I don't remember complaining when it went from 64 to 65. Maybe I complained a little bit when it went from 65 to 68, but 68 to 76. It's a bridge too far, Willie Donick. A bridge too far.
Yeah, I agree. We'll get used to it, but I don't like it. I do think what will happen, and this will go also towards the expansion of the college football
Indeed,
playoff.
and we will talk more about that tomorrow with Rexroad.
And who was it? Who were we talking with earlier this week? I don't remember, but
Gentry
we were talking
perhaps?
about Gentry Estes, where the coaches are saying, yeah, my job is predicated on making the playoffs. So the more teams are in, the better off my job security is. But it will quickly switch to playoff success and not just making the playoffs, because when you dilute it, then it's not going to mean as much to make the playoffs or make the NCAA tournament. That's what I don't like about it. I do think the standard of making the tournament for NCAA basketball is still high, especially when you factor in that the number of Division I teams keeps growing year in and year out. There's like 360 teams now. So it's just as hard, if not harder, than it's ever been to make the tournament. So when you make it, you've had a good season, even if you lose the first round. And that won't be the case anymore when you go to 76, or who knows where it goes beyond that.
One texter says, "Dear God, why 76 teams? Seriously? Just so the SEC and Big Ten can each get 4 more teams who couldn't even qualify for the NIT, so they can play 1 or 2 more games and continue to deny Indiana State or Quinnipiac an opportunity to show that they have earned a spot in the original field of 64? It's a joke. Go back to 64 and tell the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC to piss off."
See, that's the part. And listen, I'm a Big Ten guy through and through, with the exception of Michigan.
Of course.
But that's why this is where I sort of have a problem with it, because are we just trying to get more subpar Big Ten or SEC teams
Yes.
in, or SEC?
Stop there.
Yeah.
Yes.
But instead of like we talked about
Belmont
being clearly the best team in the conference, but having a bad day in the tournament, now all of a sudden they're out of it. I think it should be used for situations like that, if indeed it happens.
I would love to, if that would soften the blow for me, if they took, and I asked this to Scott Corley, Belmont's athletic director, if there are 8 more spots available, can you at least make a deal? 4 of them have to be regular season league champions. Like, that would be a compromise that at least some people would say, all right, it's a way for the Belmonts who have the pressure of having to win the conference tournament after you've been the best team in your league the whole season. Like, I could acquiesce to that and say, all right, I don't like 76, but if you're giving me 4 teams that have had a great year, but it got spoiled because they got upset in their conference tournament, that would be better.
See, because stuff like that, I believe, when a Belmont has a bad game in their own tournament, it dilutes the tournament, because now a good team that had a bad night isn't in the tournament.
Right.
Whereas they should
a team
be,
that
like
could
you
pull an
said,
upset.
Exactly. A team that, if you win your regular season conference, because that is, even in the Big Ten and the SEC, the regular season conference is important. The conference champion is important. And the tournament champion is important. So my thing would be, you give the automatic bid to the conference champion, not the playoff we play, because a 4th seed in the conference can end up winning the conference championship. But are they the best team?
As Jeff Borzello writes on ESPN.com, quote, "There might be room for another mid-major at-large team or 2, particularly those that dominate the season but lose early in their conference tournaments, i.e. Indiana State in 2024, or those with gaudy records and impressive metrics but not the marquee wins of the power conference teams, i.e. Miami, Ohio this year. The bottom line, though, after a 2025 men's tournament that featured 0 teams seeded lower than 12 advanced to the second round, and a 2026 men's tournament that saw just 1 double-digit seed reach the Sweet 16, Cinderellas could have even more of an uphill climb in the expanded field."
At one point, they had the NIT. They made a rule, because what was happening in that tournament was they were grabbing the high major names, even if they were 16-16 or something, and bypassing really good mid-major teams that were winning their league. And they made a rule that if you were a regular season champ in your league and you didn't make the NCAA, you were automatically given a spot in the NIT. I thought that was a nice move by the NIT at the time. I don't know if that's still in play now or not, but I would like to see some adoption of that. It would be hard, because it's not as simple as I'm throwing it out there, but if you could reserve half of the spots for those mid majors, one way or the other, I would be for that.
One texter says, "Don't try to deny it, Dmase. You know you put a 17-14 Michigan State team in over a 21-10 Tennessee State team.
You
that
damn
lost in the
right.
conference
You damn right I would. I ain't gonna lie about it. Hey, I wouldn't frown at it. Hey, it happens.
Liam says, "The more teams they add, the more teams that would have been safely in the field of 64 end up in a play-in game. At 76 teams, only 52 avoid a play-in." I guess that's true. I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
More teams have to work for it, I guess.
Right. Exactly. But you'll also have to say, well, they didn't make the 52, right? They had to play in. So is that really, it just creates a lot of complications.
That'll do it.
Even the 64 team bracket. Go
That's
back to
right.
64.
This bracket, this new bracket, looks like, as I said, someone took a bucket of red paint and threw it on the Mona Lisa. But
bracket.
But we'll continue that conversation tomorrow. Joe Rexroad himself will join us at 4:00. Chad Withrow expected to join us in the 3:00 hour as well. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I've got a concert to get to. Catch me at Bring Me the Horizon Bridgestone Arena. I'm on my way right now. Go Big Red, Willie Donick, Derek Mason. Send us out of here.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear this music, don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. If you catch Adam later on at the concert, say what up to him, okay?
And buy me something.
Yeah, and say we love DVD, all right? So see you tomorrow, 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. And as I say, we be talking and you be listening. Peace.